Suddenly the floor beneath our feet shifted. It tilted sharply to the left. We stumbled, crying out, grabbing onto the walls.
It stood there, at the end of Acacia Street, a small house, almost forgotten. Locals called it the house that shouldn't exist. Its paint peeled like sunburnt skin. The wood, dark and damp, sagged under an unseen weight. Windows, like vacant eyes, stared out blankly. We, a small group of curious souls, heard the stories. Tales of a place bigger on the inside, a place that breathed. We came on this day, May 26th, 2025, to see for ourselves. The air around it felt cold, colder than it should be, even under the midday sun.
The gate creaked, a rusty, mournful sound. It protested our entry.
The yard was overgrown. Weeds choked the life from forgotten flower beds. A lone, twisted sampaguita bush struggled near the porch. Its flowers, usually fragrant, offered no scent here, only the smell of dust. And something else. Something old. Something waiting. The house itself seemed to shrink as we approached, as if trying to appear even more insignificant, more harmless. The moment the door clicked shut behind us, the world changed. Or rather, our perception of it shattered. The cramped, dark entryway we had expected simply wasn't there. Instead, we found ourselves standing in a foyer, a vast, cavernous space, impossibly grand. The ceiling soared high above, lost in shadows that our flashlights could not pierce.
A grand staircase, wide enough for a dozen people to walk abreast, curved upwards into the darkness. Its wood was dark, polished to a gleam that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it.
This was not the interior of the small house we saw from the street. It was a mansion. Disbelief. That was the first emotion, followed quickly by a creeping dread. How could this be? The walls were paneled in rich, dark wood. Portraits hung there. Their eyes, painted with unnerving skill, seemed to follow our every move. The faces were unfamiliar, stern, watchful.
The air, still heavy, now carried a faint, almost imperceptible scent.
We chose the tall doorway. What other choice was there? It led into a parlor, grand, opulent, but steeped in an atmosphere of profound sadness. Dust lay thick on everything, like a fine gray snow. A massive fireplace dominated one wall, its mantelpiece bare. A grand piano stood in a corner, its keys yellowed. Silent. The air here was colder, a chill that seeped into our bones.
We spoke in whispers, afraid to disturb the heavy silence, afraid of what might answer.
Faintly, we could hear something. A whisper? Music? Or just the house settling? It was impossible to tell. The portraits in this room were different. Their eyes held a deep sorrow, a longing, as if trapped within their painted prisons. The feeling of being watched intensified. It was not just the portraits. It was the room itself, the walls, the shadows, everything. Watching, judging, waiting.
Leaving the other room behind was a relief, but the house offered no true comfort.
We found a smaller staircase, narrow, winding. It led upwards, unlike the grand one in the foyer. This felt more personal, more intimate, and somehow more menacing. Each step creaked, loudly, announcing our presence to whatever lurked above. The air grew colder still, and a new scent emerged, faint, powdery, like old baby talcum. A sense of unease prickled at the back of our necks. Something was wrong here, terribly wrong.
At the top of the stairs, a single door, smaller than the others, painted a faded blue. We pushed it open, a child's bedroom, frozen in time.
A small wooden crib stood in the center, empty, but the sheets were rumpled, as if someone had just left. Toys lay scattered on the floor. A wooden horse with one eye missing, a set of building blocks, spelling out no discernible word, just random letters. J-A-N-E, or perhaps N-A-J-E. The room was silent, too silent, an oppressive, waiting silence. No joy lingered here. We continued to explore into a new section of the house, or perhaps an old one, reconfigured. We found ourselves in a long gallery, lined with mirrors, countless mirrors, of all shapes and sizes, ornate frames, simple frames, cracked glass, polished glass. It was a hall of mirrors, but not the funhouse kind. These mirrors did not distort our bodies. They distorted something else. Our reflections stared back. But their eyes were different, older, sadder, or sometimes filled with a flicker of malice. It was like looking at strangers wearing our faces.
As we walked, our reflections didn't always match our movements. A reflected hand would linger. A head would turn a fraction too slow, or too fast. Sometimes, from the corner of our eyes, we saw other figures in the mirrors. Fleeting, shadowy, gone when we turned to look directly.
The air crackled with a strange energy. The reflections seemed to whisper, too faint to understand. But the intent felt clear, mocking, threatening. This hall was designed to break us, to make us doubt our own sanity, to shatter our sense of self. Each mirror a glimpse into a fractured reality.
Suddenly the floor beneath our feet shifted. It tilted sharply to the left. We stumbled, crying out, grabbing onto the walls.
Driven by a desperate need to escape the hall of mirrors and the treacherous floors, we pushed onwards. The house seemed to guide us, or perhaps herd us, down narrower passages, through colder rooms. The air grew thick with anticipation, as if we were approaching something significant, something the house wanted us to find. The architecture became stranger, more convoluted, angles that made no sense, doorways that led to brick walls, stairs that spiraled into nothingness. It was a physical manifestation of a nightmare. Logic had no place here.
Then we found it. A small, unassuming door, almost hidden behind a heavy tapestry.
Unlike the other grand or menacing doors, this one was plain. Simple wood, no handle. We pushed. It swung inward silently, revealing a small circular room. The air inside was still, and surprisingly, not cold. Almost neutral. In the center of the room, on a stone pedestal, sat a small, leather-bound diary, and beside it, a single tarnished silver locket. Nothing else. No gold. No jewels. Just these two simple items. I opened the diary carefully, as if afraid the old leather might crumble in my hands. The room held its breath with us. Beside the book, The tarnished silver locket seemed to shimmer faintly in the low light. I cleared my throat, then read aloud. They say a house is only as haunted as the hearts it holds. If that's true, then this one has been grieving for over a century. My name is Elena Navarro. I was the last to live here. The house was once filled with light. My husband Samuel, our daughter Jane. We believed love could hold back the darkness. But Jane, she was different. She spoke to things in the mirrors, laughed at voices no one else heard. We thought it was a child's imagination, until she vanished. No sound, no struggle. Just the scent of talcum and smoke. Every mirror in the gallery cracked that morning. Samuel saw her reflection after that. It smiled at him with eyes that weren't hers. A week later, he was gone too. I stayed. I couldn't let go. The house fed on that. It twisted itself into a maze of grief and memory. I heard her, sometimes. Still do. This locket holds her picture. I leave it here, with my story, so someone will know, so the house doesn't win. If it's let you this far, it may let you leave. But don't come back. It remembers, and it wants. The moment I closed the diary and placed it gently back on the pedestal, something shifted. A subtle change in the atmosphere. The oppressive weight seemed to lift. Not completely, but enough to notice. The air, while still stale, no longer felt actively malevolent. The silence was still deep, but it felt less like a predator's stillness, more like a quiet resignation, or perhaps a quiet satisfaction. The house had what it wanted, or rather, it had made us find what it wanted us to find. Its story had been witnessed.
Suddenly, a door we hadn't noticed before creaked open on the far side of the circular room. It revealed a simple hallway, plain, unadorned. Unlike the labyrinthine corridors we had navigated before, this one looked normal, almost boring.
A faint light emanated from its end. Not daylight, but a less oppressive artificial glow. There was an unspoken understanding among us. This was the way out, not an escape we fought for, but a release. Granted by the house itself, it was letting us go. Its purpose, for now, fulfilled.